Hey, it's episode 5. Well, it's been about roughly 2 weeks, and we haven't done an episode. I feel kind of bad about it, but I've had a lot of crazy shit going on. If you guys can remember, we just did our first show on the East Coast, and that was a difficult experience. Difficult meaning just the logistics of trying to put together something so far away. You know, it's nearly 3,000 miles away from Seattle. So, there's a lot of things to talk about today, so I thought I'd just go ahead and try and finish up the video, get it up for you guys. I'm not going to talk too much about the New Jersey show, but I am going to highlight a couple quick things. We're going to start probably with just before we left. We started filming a lot of video and that kind of stuff, and we were able to come out quickly with our documentary from Crispy, which was super, super dope. Really excited about that. Look for an upcoming video with kind of like behind the scenes, that kind of stuff. But if you don't know who I am, my name is Mike Tolliver, and I'm the owner of StanceWars. Let's go look at what we did just about 2 weeks ago. Hey guys, I just went and picked up our truck from Freightliner. Here I should probably flip this thing around. Maybe sitting out here in the Freightliner yard. Getting ready to go to Jersey in the next couple days. Got to get things set up. We're moving to a new parking spot. They just leased us out something really cool here in Pacific. We'll talk to you guys soon. That might not look like much, but she is a semi-truck and trailer. She holds a lot of gear for us. I'm so proud that we have her, and it's a childhood dream to own something like this. I'll tell you, and I'm super glad that Gordon Truck Centers has leased us a new space. It's very generous of them, and hopefully we'll be helping them out maybe with some truck events in the near future. That would be super dope. So we're getting ready to load out right now. Here's the semi-truck, our new parking space. A lot of people asked about this last week. I suck at driving, but I'm not bad. Several people wanted to know what was up in here. Here's our crane. Lots of tables. Up at the top is our leather couches and a whole lot of stereo equipment, countertops, lots and lots of tents, trussing structures, photo booth, more tents, lots and lots of merchandise, flag systems. I own about 32 18-inch subwoofers. There's some there, there's some more down there, there's a bunch more up front. Bicycles, merchandise. Still a lot left to go in here. All this will be full by the time we leave. Well, you can tell by the video, it took us a lot to load up. In fact, I made about 4 or 5 runs down to where we had the truck sitting at to fill it with all the different things that we needed to take. We took a lot of t-shirts and a lot of merchandise, but, I had like the photo booth sitting at my house from some other things. It was a lot of stuff to kind of load up. In fact, Sean probably got out a little bit late on Monday. It's a 42-hour direct drive. But you got to do some sleep in there. You got to stop for fuel. And when you're in the truck, we've done a couple different videos of us being in the truck. It's not like you're just driving and you and your buddies are going to California or whatever. First of all, it's pretty hard to go over 65. I mean, we can, but the reality is that we start suffering fuel mileage. But the other thing is, like, when you pull in somewhere, it's not a 5-minute stop. It just never works that way in a semi-truck. In fact, it's actually way longer. To pull in and get fuel, go to the bathroom, grab a sandwich, something like that, it's about an hour. There's just no way around it. We've tried many different trips to do a little better for that. But, that's okay. That's how it starts. A lot of people ask me also is, what does it cost to run something like that? Well, I pay a driver, and, we pay about the industry average, which is somewhere between 30 to 38 cents a mile. But fuel mileage, I get about between 6 and 7. So it's pretty easy to estimate that it costs about $1 a mile. So to go over to the East Coast for us, it's about 3,200 miles there and about 3,200 miles back. So, it's about a $6,000 investment to take everything we got. If we were probably going to ship everything, it'd probably come pretty close to doing the same. So I guess it's a good and bad. But anyway, Sean got taken off, and he went off to New Jersey. And, the next thing we're going to show you here is basically us flying out to New Jersey. We're at the airport. It's like 5-something in the morning. And
It's breakfast time.
It's breakfast time?
Excited.
Sup? Jason, Sarah, and my wife are over there. And the guys in California are on their way, but they're coming from somewhere else, so. What in the fuck are you wearing?
Goddamn right. Pussy shirts.
Jesus Christ, Tyler.
And I'm wearing a drip cone shirt.
Yeah, that's okay. You guys can see I'm wearing a StanceWars Oh Fuck shirt, so. Okay, so now that we're on the blog, we're not going to talk about that story. One, because this guy right there, yeah, he's having a great time in this conversation. Hey, it's Jason and Sarah.
Hi.
No, we're on the blog. We'll blog later, yeah. Yeah, we'll probably do it the day before the show. Or after the show, maybe? I don't know, we'll see. What? What? What?
She told me I couldn't go.
What?
Ah! Damn it on them hooks.
Yeah. Goodbye, Seattle. Now, the flight over to New Jersey from Seattle is about 5.5 hours. I've done it about 4 or 5 times this year. And, you know, there was a lot of shenanigans. I'm not going to tell you all the shenanigans that happened, but, you know, when you fly as a group, which is kind of fun, we flew 6 or 8 on that flight, and then I think 8 more flew later that night, and then the California guys and the Texas guys all flew up, and the Portland guys and the Canadian guys. Everybody else flew on separate planes, but there was some shenanigans. There was a lot of Snapchatting and that kind of stuff on our personal channels, and we had a good time. But, you know, one of the key things here that I want to stress is that, you know, going for us to New Jersey, there was 2 folds. One, we wanted to pull off an East Coast show, but secondly is that, you know, it was a reward for all my guys who worked very, very hard here in Seattle. You know, while they did get taken care of very well, you know, going to New Jersey, it was basically they were going to pull off a show, and then they were going to get a lot of sightseeing in. And we try and take care of our guys. That's an important thing. For people who want to work for us or volunteer for us, we really like to show them a good time and take care of them. Unfortunately, on the trip out, it was a little early in the morning to be buying rounds of drinks, but doesn't mean that we didn't. So let me... I'll pop a few photos in here so you guys can see some of that, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about the different things that we actually did, you know, once we arrived and that kind of stuff. You know, once we got there, well, kind of the funny joke is my wife really hates to fly, and a lot of the guys were asking, you know, how's the flight going to be, and I said, well, it's 5.5 hours, it's pretty smooth, it's not a problem, you know, we're going to go over the Great Lakes, it's going to be pretty neat, but since my wife was going to fly with us, that meant it was going to be incredibly bumpy. Just my wife seems to be kind of bad luck when it comes to getting on flights. And since I was sitting in the very last row, that meant it was going to be, even if we had a little bit of bumps, it was going to be crazy. In fact, I met a girl, she was sitting to the right of me, and I sat in the middle, and my wife sat on the end. And by the end of the flight, both of them were holding on to each of my arms because we were rocking and rolling coming into Jersey. And that was kind of... it was kind of exciting. My wife really hates flying, and I don't mind it. I just feel that if we're going down, we're going down. There's nothing I can do about it. So, but we did have a good time in that aspect. And then next, we basically had to try and meet up with the rest of the folks that flew in because they were flying exactly the same time, so we can go get all of our rental cars and all that and get off to the hotel. Well, somehow we arrived all in New Jersey without any kind of real incident by any means. We had a good time on the flight, that's for sure. Got some rest in. And then the next thing we had to do is headed over to Enterprise Rental Car and rent up 4 cars really quickly. In fact, we were only getting 2 that morning, and then we were going to get 2 more later that night. So we got down to Enterprise Rental Car, and that's where the meeting point was for the California team, the Portland team, and California team, the Portland team. Who else was coming in that night or at that time? Oh, and our intern Chewy was going to fly in as well. So we met up with everybody really quickly and got our rental cars. Enterprise, thank you very, very much for upgrading us to full size, which was really cool of them. I think we've rented enough cars this year to make that worthwhile for them. So thank you very much for that. And then we basically headed off quickly to the hotel to drop our bags, and we wanted to try and get in one site early with the early guys. So I had been out earlier in the year, and the one place that I had been to was Liberty Park. And that's the backside of the Statue of Liberty, and it's a big, giant park, and it's a greenery and that kind of stuff. There's also the old rail station over there, but there's also a quick memorial to those from 9/11. And, you know, it's kind of one of those things to go and see that stuff. We knew going into New York and that kind of stuff, we were going to have an emotional time because 9/11 had just recently happened. In fact, you know, it was just a couple days prior to us going out there. And it was very interesting to do that. And that was kind of fun. Later on that evening, we kind of went back to the hotel. We all took some naps. I bought about $50 worth of junk food at the gas station. And, we went over to the mall, too. The mall was across the street from our hotel and went and fancied around a little bit. And but anyways, we ended up ordering some or Chinese food. I'm not even sure what time it was. It wasn't super late. It probably was like 11 o'clock East Coast time. But for us, it was like 9 o'clock. Let me show you a video we took of that real quick.
Don't fucking touch it. It was like a soul cup full of Jaeger. Yeah, she was getting crazy.
Yeah, I know. We were a little bit crazy.
I told you, he drinks all Jaeger with a little bit of cider.
So you know the really secret crystals. So we're having
You should grab that purple drink. I bet you that would taste good.
over here. Here's right platter.
It's time for a little Chinese food at the hotel. It's Thursday night, and we're all a little bit hungry after eating a ton of junk food.
There you go.
It's time to dig in and have some really good stuff with some drinks.
That's what I wanted.
That's a fried wonton.
Which is not what I thought it was. That's what I ordered.
You better finish it anyways.
We're working on getting the stage set up. Obviously, the semi-truck made it all the way out here to New Jersey. All the guys are getting all the trussing pieces out and getting ready to go. We'll be setting up at MetLife here for the next couple of hours. So one of the things we worked out with MetLife was that we would come in Friday to appease the unions. So one of the things in dealing with MetLife is we have to deal with the unions and the Teamsters, and there's an electricians union and a food union and a concierge union and the parking union. So we agreed that we would come in Friday, and one of the reasons that we needed to come in Friday was we needed to use the stagehands because we needed to have so many stagehands from the MetLife, but also we needed to set up our generators and so they could get grounded. I really didn't understand the point of grounding personal generators. You know, like when we rent a generator trailer, totally understand because you could get killed from that. I mean, I guess you could get killed if you really tried hard from a small personal generator. So those were the things that we really needed to do on Friday. That's why the truck had to come in at a certain time. Then we could have time to do this. So we did set up first thing Friday morning because all the rest of our guys came in late Thursday night. That way we would have time to go do some kind of sightseeing and stuff on Friday. One of the things that we found out was that our riggers came and said we were hungry, and they said, hey, you know, if you're looking for one of these delicatessens, we all wanted to go to a New York deli. That was kind of one of the things that we wanted to do. And they said, hey, there's this Harold's, and it's actually not very far from here. It's actually only like half a mile away, and it's phenomenal. Well, we went over to Harold's, and I got to say, it was insane. I think we took 22 of us to the restaurant. Luckily, it was pretty slow, but the sandwiches were enormous. I think the regular sandwiches were like $55, and they were literally probably 8 inches thick. I mean, maybe 10 inches thick. I mean, it was insane. The carrot cake and all the cakes in the thing were a foot thick, which if you're a fatty like me, I mean, hell, you have to love that kind of thing. So we went over there, and we had a great time for that. And then the next thing you know, basically we went back to the hotel that night, and we did some drinking and had a good time, finished up some of the things that we needed to get accomplished. We had stopped over by Bergen Social, which is where we were going to have the VIP party, and got some things taken care of over there. That way we could get up the next morning and we could go set up. have plenty of time. In fact, we had more time than we actually knew what to do with. We probably should have maybe brought back the hours a few hours so we could have more hours of show. But we don't like to have it too long, so that was about it. And then we went into the show. Now, I've got a clip to show you from the show. I'm not going to really talk about the show. I'll save that for another episode completely all by itself. In fact, we even asked for feedback, and I'll make a feedback video all about that. That's something new that we could do. We had a great show. It was fun. But let me roll some footage real quick. Now, we finished up the show, and we had a great time. I think most of us got incredibly sunburnt and were a little bit that close to heat stroke. In fact, I felt like I was at heat stroke. We drank like 10 or 12 freaking cases of water between 20 of us, and I ended up going over to the VIP much later than I really wanted to, but I did get a chance to speak with a lot of really great people. I was able to shake people's hands as they left the venue. I'm not sure if a lot of people really liked that or didn't like it. I don't know. But I went over to the party afterwards and got to hang out with Bag Riders and a few of the other guys and some of the top 100 people. And it wasn't an exclusive super party. We didn't rent out the place, especially not in the first year. Like here in Seattle, we rent an entire bar. Probably this year in Houston, we'll probably rent out an entire bar, so it will be exclusive. But, it's one of those things to get a chance to sit down and have a drink with somebody and talk candidly about different aspects of the show and that kind of stuff. And, we'll talk about the show later, but, we did have a good time. I shot some footage when I got back to the hotel because a lot of the staff didn't get a chance to come to the party. Probably only a few people, maybe a couple of the managers did. I shot some footage, but the reality is it's about 20 guys sitting around the hotel lobby drinking, pretty hammered because they're just physically beat. We had been out there pretty much all day. And they had a good time, and they knew we were going to get up pretty early in the morning. A lot of the guys said that we were going to leave and be in New York City by 9 a.m. I didn't believe that we'd actually do that, but I held out hope to see what would happen. I went back and purposely got slightly intoxicated so I could actually get some sleep because once the stress is over and all that's done, that's kind of what you do. And then the next morning, we pretty much got up and decided we would do some sightseeing around not San Francisco, but New York City. It's kind of fun to try and coordinate 5 cars driving into New York City, and we had a pretty good time with finding a good spot to park. We pretty much parked at Madison Square Garden, and we snapped a quick photo. I'd like to show you this photo right now of most of the team. And the cool thing about that is like I said, I think at the beginning of the video, is a lot of this was payback for guys that had worked really, really hard in Vegas, and they had worked their butt off in Seattle because it's such a large event, and then they get to get some of this. And kind of one of the things too is to probably tell you guys is that some of the people from the Northwest. They're similar to my wife. They've never been outside of Seattle. I've lived in a lot of places. I've lived all over America. There's only a couple states that I actually haven't been to. And I grew up in a family that traveled a lot, and my dad looked for work, and we had to travel to wherever the work was. But a lot of the guys that are on my team have really never left Seattle. In fact, Tyler, who heads up my stage, he's only been to places that I've taken him to. And there's a lot of people on the staff that are in that similar situation. So really, this was a big deal for them to be able to go to New York and spend time, days in New York and have a good time. So I'll roll some video here, or not video, but I'll roll some photos of the different things that we went to. We went down and went straight to Central Park. That was kind of one of the first things we really wanted to do. In fact, Jason and Sarah had a really great time there at the park. And then, we tromped across the park. We didn't realize, I knew it was big, but, we tromped across the park over to Fifth Avenue, and we kind of sightseed down from the north to the south. And Renee, who was with us, Renee used to live in New York, so this was kind of heritage to him, and we were going to, go around and do a couple things. We quickly went over and got some New York hot dogs. That was kind of a thing that a lot of us really wanted to do. In fact, I'm sitting here on the screen. I can see Jason's Instagram, and that was one of the big things he recorded. He wanted to get hot dogs in New York, and in fact, he got a Central Park hot dog. I waited till we were over on Fifth, and then we went over to Park and had some hot dogs too. And then we kind of tromped down past a few sites, like Guggenheim and a couple other things, and we ended up a little bit later, probably down about 3 o'clock, we ended up down at the, I think it's the Reflecting Pond, where they have the RC sailboats, and by then, we were pretty beat after working our ass off. I think it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we sat down and had ice cream for about 30 or 40 minutes. And it was quite nice. And then we decided we'd go walk 2 or 3 blocks over, catch the subway, and we wanted to head down till 9/11. And I shot some footage of 9/11 and the memorial down there. And let's roll a clip real quick. Now, we went to the 9/11 memorial and the tower pools, and for Renee, that was kind of a righteous spot. And one of his, I believe it was his aunt or his cousin or something that had died actually in one of the towers, and so we went and found her name on the memorial and that kind of thing. And then I asked my staff if they wanted to go in the museum. Now, the museum wasn't necessarily cheap, so I did offer for anybody who needed help. I would help them out and pay for their entrance in. And we went into the museum. I only took a couple photos. We weren't supposed to take photos in there, but we did sit down and we watched both of the movies. That was a little hard after working so hard and tromping all over the city. We all had a hard time staying awake just because we needed a nap, and that was one of the things we decided that after we got out of the museum, we'd try and find some place to take a nap and go hit up and have some really good dinner, because we knew we were going to go to Times Square that night, and we were going to spend one whole day in New York City, and so we did that, and I got some photos here that I can show you guys from the 9/11 memorial, and it's very interesting. If you guys get a chance, I highly recommend spending at least 2 or 3 hours, or planning to spend 2 or 3 hours inside that museum. It's about $25 a head. Veterans are a little less, and they have all kinds of different discounts for different kinds of people. But highly recommend spending 2 hours. It's one of those things that it's a must see if you're going to go to New York. And then we went over and had some nice dinner and some beers and some malts and big sandwiches and big giant burgers and that kind of stuff. I should have shot some footage of that because the conversations were pretty interesting, I could tell you, and off color, but sometimes we don't need to necessarily show you all of those behind the scenes pieces. But I did take some photos when we went over to Times Square. I could pop you guys a few photos here that we did. Renee, being the New York person, he's telling us to put our wallets in our front pockets and, don't do this and don't do that and that kind of thing. And we were wondering where the ball was, where the ball dropped, We've all seen those kind of things. And if you've been to, probably we go to Vegas and we go to Old Town Vegas, it's very similar, Old Town Vegas versus going to Times Square. In fact, I think Times Square is big and it's very, very populated, but I think probably Old Town Vegas is probably a little more lively. In fact, I didn't see near the street performers in New York as I do in the Vegas one. But two different total animals, and that was pretty much the majority of our trip. Now we didn't get home till like 1 or 2 in the morning. Some of us got stuck coming out of the Lincoln Tunnel and that kind of stuff to get back to the hotel. The next day was basically us getting people in and out of town. In fact, halfway through the day in New York, Cynthia left and had to go back. Brooke left, and she had to take off, and our DJ, Mike Jones, he had to fly back, and Chris and his buddy, and there was a lot of people that had to fly out the next day, but most of us spent the day in New York and had a good time. And then we got back to the hotel very, very late with our plans to get up the next morning and fly back to Seattle. And that's kind of how it goes for us. This is kind of the behind the scenes, and you get to see that kind of thing. We get to have a good time. We do work very, very hard. I would love to film, us actually working really, really hard. Maybe in the new documentary you get to see some of that, and some of the things that happen in the new Seattle documentary. Those are happening in all the different shows. There's a lot of work to actually get done. In fact, today I was working behind the scenes for Houston, and I'm signing contracts and that kind of stuff, and getting things ready to go, setting up airfare for all of our staff to fly down to Houston for our next show. Houston is November 18th, and we're trying to get that going, and there's some logistical problems there. Hotels are kind of hard to find, to be honest, because people's houses are wiped away, and so they're living in hotels. And so finding vacancies is not going to be the most interesting, it's not going to be the easiest thing. So I'm going to let you guys go. That's pretty much the end of the episode 5. And I will, we'll do our very best to start doing these every single week on Tuesdays. In fact, the next video that I'm going to do for you guys will be a feedback review of our show in New Jersey, and I'll give you some of my personal feelings and insights to a couple aspects of the show that did and didn't happen, and some of the faux pas that we did, and some of the things that really blew our minds just going to the East Coast and dealing with East Coast people. But until then, have a great, safe, happy, fun week. For you, I don't know when you're going to see this, but for me it's Tuesday, and I've got crazy stuff going on with my kids for the rest of the week. We have conferences and all kinds of different stuff, and I'm trying to ship out a ton of orders, and I'm a little shy on our interns because they've started back to college. So we'll talk to you guys soon. Have a great one. We'll talk to you soon. I'm Mike Tolliver, and I own StanceWars, and thank you for being part of our life.